they can't seem to identify or differentiate between compromise and when someone is taking advantage of them. You look at guys' relationships. I mean, they can't tell. They don't know. With women, when there's a language barrier, they come from a different country. They have to put things very directly. They ask you straight out, "How are you going to provide for me?"
I found that I was dating a Chinese girl from Shanghai for a couple of years, and I found that as she picked up language, she was very good at picking up languages. But yeah, at first they don't learn a lot of words, so they try to be incredibly accurate with what they're saying, and and very direct, very straightforward. So yeah, it was conversation was actually enjoyable, even though at first it was very hard to understand her.
Well, that makes sense, and what Spetsnaz says as well, because if you're learning the basics of direct communication, like as a second language, to be able to communicate, like for instance, say we decide we want to go live in Iceland or somewhere, you're going to learn the basics to get by. And that's the survival part of being able to relate to people. You know, please, thank you, yes, no. And then once you get better, then you start to get into the second layer of poetry and like this means that, and this is a metaphor and that's not a metaphor. And so the direct language on the first level, as a tourist or as someone learning the second language, there's something I think refreshing because you have to be direct. You're not good enough to be sophisticated with it. And I think both women and men, but particularly women, their sophistication in being passive aggressive, saying one thing but meaning this, yes means no, all that kind of stuff. If they went to another country and used the whole yes means no thing, they wouldn't be able to buy a loaf of bread.
Yeah. You know what else is interesting? Because I went through that phase with her, teaching her colloquialisms and talking about metaphors, and that's when I discovered that the way she thought about things was totally different. A whole different concept of thinking. How she actually thought of things. And it wasn't because she was female, it's because she was Chinese. And it was really shocking, the actual stark difference in how historical things like family and tradition and everything influenced her decisions on a lot of things and how she discussed them.
Begs the question, are international marriages any more successful than, domestic marriages, I wonder?
Yeah, quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I think in the U.S., most like Asian woman, white guy marriages, their divorce rate's only like 11%.
I wonder, that's actually interesting. I wonder if it's a big part of that is directly related to the practical aspects of the language. You really just have to communicate practically. I love you means I love you. I need a coffee means I need a coffee. We're going to split the finances like this. There's no kind of creative language or, making things vague. Because if you make things vague, you basically are two languages unable to communicate. So you have to be direct. I wonder if that that kind of practical directness in first level communication allows, the relationship to stay on track and be kind of more foundational.
This is in my experience, so it's just my opinion. I think at the beginning, it makes you both more comfortable because you're trying so hard to actually communicate. You want to make sure each other understands exactly what you mean. So communication is so much better. As far as the failure rate, I think traditionally the women from other countries try harder at making the marriage work, and also American men usually try to make the marriages work, and that works for a while till she meets friends. And then it starts going south. In both my relationships, I can truthfully, honestly say it was her idiot friends that destroyed our marriage.
How did that play out? What did that look like?
Oh, well, the first group was all white women, but
You cut out.
She actually knew from her country, but they were all Americanized. Slowly, one by one, they all divorced their American husbands and chased younger guys. And the usual story, chase Chad till you lose them after you destroyed your marriage. But then each one of them were, you should, I think, basically telling her you could do the same thing. You could come out here and chase the boys with me. And it just, I could see what was happening. I think we were the fifth couple in that group.
Wow. Wow, interesting. And what was sort of the warning signs or sort of the indicators, red flags sort of popped up for you?
As a matter of fact, I made a note of this for younger guys. You would notice subtle disrespect. You would notice things like she'd start talking over you if you were making a point, whereas that never happened before. She'd say what she had to say. You'd say, you had a conversation. And then all of a sudden, it just started happening. She'd talk over the top of you before you finished your sentence, rolling the eyes, which is that's kind of an American thing or Western thing more than anything. You don't see like Asians rolling their eyes when each other are talking. She just started picking up all these little bad traits, but those were the things I noticed, and little irritating nuance type things that I had never paid attention to before, but all of a sudden noticed started happening.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's I just came back from Thailand recently. I've got a lot of mates over there, and they're in long-term relationships with Thai women. But it's a very sort of practical arrangement. To Thai women, when you have an actual conversation with them, family comes first. They're providing for their family. All the money that they make goes direct to their family back in the village. And the guy, he is in many ways just a utility, but there is a sense of respect there that you don't get in the West. And when I'm over there, it's like all of that is gone. All of that sort of that toxic dynamic, it isn't present. So men and women can relate to each other. But at the same time, it's in terms of a totem pole of where you rank, it's her family, it's her children, it's a family dog, and then there's you. And it's just, it depends on which part of Thailand you go to. Like if you go to Pattaya or those kind of areas in, Assam, that's how they're going to view you. In more traditional sort of places, like Chiang Mai was great. There's a different dynamic there, and it's a far more healthier dynamic. There is respect, and it is a practical relationship, and that works for a lot of guys. It wouldn't work for me. But I can see how men benefit from that. So when you put out the divorce statistics, I can get that. A lot of men will look at that and say, hey, I'm getting my needs met here. I have respect. We've got a practical partnership, but he's still the one paying the bills. But maybe he's okay with that arrangement.
I think guys have less of a problem with, I went into this with a certain structure. I might go to work, I might pay the bills, she does this. So you both know what you're responsible for. You know the structure of what this is. For me, it's fine, whatever you want. But I think it's legitimate when you can say, well, you've reneged on it. Like you hooked me in with the promises, but then once you got me or over a period of time, what you said was important wasn't actually important. And going back to what Rocket was saying about his ex-wife, as I've gotten older, and especially with the woman I'm with now, one thing I really paid attention to is, because I remember in the past, like women I'd like, they'd be fun and happy with me, but then there was little parts of their personality. They talk about their friends, a bust up with a friend, a fight with a coworker, and the way she'd react to it. And like you'd see spitefulness in her. And, I did this to her and I showed her. And if someone did, and I did this to Mary and my ex, I did this and, and she says, but I wouldn't do that to you. The person I love, I wouldn't do that. And I would always learn to say, no, that's actually a character trait of that person. If things get bad, they have the ability to do that. And sometimes they want to do that. If they've got a really negative character trait, like a bad temper, vindictiveness, if Chicky Poo that you love has that, or she's around friends that exhibit that, that is part of her. And when things are good, she won't reach for that weapon, but you better believe that she's got to open the box and she's going to use it to one degree or another, or she's going to be thinking about it. And I noticed when I got older, you meet women who's got really bad character traits and you chuckle, but underneath you're going, holy shit, I'm glad I'm not on her bad side. But the thing is too many guys accept women who have those character traits to use if times get rough.
Yep.
I think one of the little dirty secrets that most people don't talk about on a lot of marriages that actually work, the guy is not loved, but what he is respected. And a lot of guys can live without love. Most of us do it every day. But you don't like living without respect.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's kind of synonymous. I suppose it's how you word things and how you accept them as well. For me, love is respect. Love for me, I don't really see it as some flowery, romantic, rainbow bullshit. For me, love is very practical. So if there's respect, you are honest, you don't deviate, or if you do, you talk about it, you communicate, like you said, Rocket. Like all of that respect, honesty, clarity, that to me is love, even between friends and guys. Like love is that kind of clarity and openness and respect. And then the fluffy bunny feelings you might feel as a result with a woman, perhaps, that's a direct result of that respect and that structure and that honesty. So I've never felt like you lead with the fluffy bunny and the rainbows. That's always just like a icing on the cake that results from actually being practically honest, consistent, not lying. If you do want to change your mind, you have a discussion, you meet halfway, all of these mature things. But I think everyone just goes in crossing their fingers that the rainbows and unicorns, just let's keep them going any way we can, even if that means we don't talk about certain things or bury our heads in the sand. Because if we have a direct conversation, then we could break up. I think your own attitude and how you insist upon relating to people, your own values, how you decide to talk and act and what you insist upon and your boundaries, if you don't really rigorously train those like you would be weekly going to the gym and body parts, then you're just kind of crossing your fingers and you're hoping that things fall into place, and they don't. They just don't. You need, I've said it with Quaz, and I really believe this, that love is a skill, relationships are skills. You have to maintain them just the way you maintain your body and your nutrition at the gym. If it's not important to you, if you think no, I'll just relax now, I'll still be in shape, mentally, physically, relationally, you won't. You won't. It's literally a skill, I think.
Oh, I think that's a great analogy. Just like being charming and being a pickup artist is a skill, maintaining a relationship is a skill, and it takes perseverance and it takes discipline. And I had coined a phrase today, and it's this one is good. It has to do with relationships. Hypergamy never sleeps, and that's why you have to maintain vigilance.
Yep. Look, all of life is maintenance. And I'm pretty sure Spetsnaz would agree with this, whether it's your physical routines, your habits, all of the stuff we all know is good to do. We all know is healthy, from physical to mental to relationships. Even I want to make these catch-ups weekly if I can. I want to make an effort to keep this social thing going, both conversationally, ideas. I find this stuff interesting. I want to hang out with you guys. I want to, stay healthy. I want to go for my runs continually. I want to keep the things going and maintain the things that I say are important. You can't just talk about this stuff. You really need to make an effort. And we're not perfect, but we can't go on autopilot. Whenever you go on autopilot, things just drift away. Before you know it, 10 or 15 years go by, and you're talking about the good old days. Rocket said an important thing before with his first relationship. They used to communicate. And I think that if you forget anything else, if you and your partner, if you're romantically involved with a woman, if you don't communicate openly and honestly, you don't kind of talk to play the romantic game, like you don't work out what to say to Pumpkin to navigate the minefield, so you don't press a hot button that gets her pissed off, that's not someone you want to be with. But if you can just openly and honestly always If you have like a really odd feeling, you feel like there's a red flag, you talk about everything so there's no feeling of red flag. You go to sleep at night completely like a baby where there's nothing wrong because you can communicate. And that's, I think foundationally, that's about the only thing that can keep a relationship going as well as it can.
I gave up giving advice to people about diet and training because every time I did, they just criticize it. It's like, well, how do I lose weight? Okay, well, I've lost 10 kilos in a month. Okay, I knocked it off. Okay, well, how'd you do that? And I tell them, oh, no, that's not safe. No, I can't do that. And they're grossly overweight. I said, what'd you ask me then? Just to criticize me? So they're not at that point. So you can throw advice at people, but unless they're clear on what they want and how they're going to get there and what they need to do, then they're not going to employ it. They're just going to criticize it. So it's like you say, people run on autopilot. They're just reacting externally to everything around them, as opposed to getting clear on what they want. It's about getting clear on the specifics of what you want and trusting your instincts. And because, you talk about guys and relationships, they can't seem to identify or differentiate between compromise and when someone is taking advantage of them. You look at guys' relationships, they can't tell. They don't know. Like you could say, like, you're very clear. When he talked about what, I think it was Boffin talked about respect being key. And you're very clear on that. Love is respect. It's a part of love. You're very clear on that. Men, if you brought up respect and love, what does that look like in your relationship? They wouldn't know. So they run on autopilot. They get into the subordinate role. It's a reflex. And of course women are going to take advantage of that. So if he's not clear on his boundaries, if he's not enforcing those, if he's not verbalizing that and using language to enforce that, well, he's going to get walked on. Because compromise is inevitable in every aspect of life. But he has to be able to stand up for himself, and he has to be able to navigate conflict with his mother or his partner. It's the same thing. A lot of guys can't differentiate. So
a good way to train yourself is start learning how to say no to people.
Yes. It's the first word we learn as kids.
Yep. And the other thing I was going to say, Spets, is you can't wake someone up who's pretending to be asleep.
Yeah, 100%.
Spets, you said something earlier that's kind of intrigued me. You were talking about your mates who are in relationships with Thai women, I think you said.
Yep.
And they fell somewhere after the family dog in terms of, their and you said that they're kind of viewed as a utility by the women. And the thing that's kind of intriguing to me is, do you think that these guys understood when they went into the relationship that this was more about the practical aspect of the relationship as opposed to the romantic aspect of the relationship? Were they adult and realistic enough to realize that there was the expectations were a lot more serious than just some type of romantic involvement with a woman?
Well, I think with a lot of guys, that voice in your head should be a good mate. You should be your best mate, right? He should be vouching for you, but a lot of times he's just an annoying dickhead tapping you on the shoulder and telling you that you're not good enough. That's what these guys get. I was sitting there with a mate, and he's got one woman in Bangkok, and he's got his partner in another province, and she's on WhatsApp, and we're in a bar, and she's saying that I have to pay my bar fine so I can get off work. So he's got to give her money in order for her to get out of her bar, because she's obviously a prostitute. So that a lot of these guys are in these arrangements with these women, so they know from practical perspective of what these women are doing and the lifestyle that they're leading, but they're saying it's okay. She respects me.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
It's just that I'm like, mate, you should be demanding more of yourself here. You deserve more than this. And there are other guys who met girls in bars, and they live in Chiang Mai, which is a lovely city. But it's, you know, they're like Mother Teresa. Like, they're just, what, you're going to wash her sins clean? All of a sudden, you can take the bar girl out of her and you can bring it to a nice little province. She's different now. No, I mean, it doesn't work that way, mate. You know, it's... So, but they are very traditional and practical in the way that they approach a relationship. So I can see how it works. There isn't that sort of toxic dynamic. But you're only as good as, you know, the money that you've got in your pocket. So...
Right. I misunderstood. I thought when you first were talking about it that they were in kind of a live-in relationship with one another. And these guys, they are.
Yeah. Like, they could be married with one, but they can have their shiksa on the side. So they can have, you know, the girlfriend on the side. That's fine. They understand that. You talk to the woman and they're like, oh, well, it's just a man. He has needs.
There's a lot of polyamorous relationships over there.